Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. So as a quick recap, up until this point, we've had Reiki appointments, which have been going offside. Weird things have been happening. Names have been coming up. Then we had the first Luigi story. Then I went to my crystal healing class and got some answers. Then I came back and had the Maria story with my neighbor. And now my life is kind of turned upside down. It's been all encompassing. This is what is taking up my free time. When people ask me what's new, this is what I want to share because this is what's new. And I'm subconsciously searching for answers. I want someone to tell me what's going on. I want someone to help me. Unfortunately, that's not what I got, but that's all part of the process and the journey of me realizing what was going on. Now we're, I think, a week later. So about a week after the Maria story, I'm going to a cottage with a bunch of girlfriends. So one of my very good friends and I are in the car and we're driving out to the cottage. It's about an hour away. And I tell her these two stories and how unbelievable it is, how I don't really know what's happening. I think I can communicate with dead people, like what's going on. We're in the car discussing this. Then we arrive at the cottage, and we were the first to arrive. And the host, Tori, welcomes us and shows us her family's cottage. And her family's cottage has hundreds of rooms. That's an exaggeration. They have like 10. But everybody that was there that weekend was going to get their own room. So since we were the first ones there, she was like, welcome. I'm going to show you to your room. So I was first. She took me to the room on the first floor. It was right beside the door. And she said, Steph, this is your room. And I was like, great. Put my bag down. And I just got the chills when I walked into my room. And I just thought to myself, don't start, Steph. Don't start thinking that something's going to happen. Kind of don't get in that mindset. Everything is fine. This room doesn't feel weird. Just be normal. So I dropped my bag down and I continued to follow the girls around the house. I wanted to see the rest of the cottage. And my friend that was with me in the car, we went down a few set of stairs and she said, okay, and this one's your room. And she dropped off her bag and I was kind of like, all right, I don't feel anything in this room. So maybe it is just me. Okay. As people start to arrive, they each start to be assigned a room. And I go into everyone's room to check it out. And again, in no other room do I feel weird, but every time I go back and step into my room, it was kind of this weird vibe. I couldn't explain it. And the room that I was staying in had an ensuite, so whenever I needed to use the washroom or get something from my bag, I was continuing to go back and forth to the room. So once all the girls have arrived, we're sitting on the deck, we're having some snacks, and it's kind of the, what's new, what's going on? And I was like, well, like these are all my best girlfriends. Like I kind of need to tell them what's happening. And my friend had already heard it in the car, but this was going to be a repeat for her. And I go through the whole stories of what has been happening and how it's weird and how I don't know what's going on, but this is kind of all the information that I have. And again, I get those stares at me, those deer in the headlights of, oh, and automatically, do you have something for me? Do you have anything for me? What do you pick up? And I was like, no, the only thing that I have is my room feels weird. And the host, Tori, was like, well, your room is the guest room, so no one would have been in that room. And her father has passed away. Tori's father has passed away, and I knew that. But she's like, no, it wouldn't be my dad because my dad was never in that room. I'm staying in my dad's room. And I was like, okay. So we went on the rest of the day. The cottage weekend was really fun. But every time I walked into the room, I just started feeling something. And then it was becoming something in my chest. So whenever I walked into the room, I could all of a sudden hear my breath. It became audible. So my normal everyday breathing, I don't hear it. But when I walked into the room, it was very labored. It was... And I kept thinking to myself, I'm doing this. There's no way I walk into the room and all of a sudden my breath becomes labored. And I would walk out of the room and my breath would go back to normal. So I asked Tori, we're at 8 p.m. at this point in the evening. What did your father pass away of? Like every time I walk into that room, I'm having a hard time breathing. Like I can hear my breath. It's really weird. She's like, no, that's not him. He wasn't in that room. Like, okay. And then we're getting into like 9, 10 o'clock. So I'm going in and out of the room more often now, getting ready, grabbing something. At one point, I stood inside the room and I could hear my breath. And then I stepped outside the room and my breath was normal. And then I'd step back in the room. I would hear my breath. Step outside. I probably did this about 13 times. And I was like, no, I'm definitely crazy. I'm making this up. Like, there's no way when I step into the room or I hear my breath and then when I step out, I don't. So I go back and I say, Tori, I think your dad's in my room. And also I think there's 2 other people there. And I think it's your grandma and your grandpa. I'm like, there's 3 people in my room now. She's like, no, your room was the guest room. No one of those people would have stayed in those rooms. I was like, well, your dad and your grandma and grandpa are there. So I'm just telling you that. And your dad, did he die of something of the chest? Like, I'm really having a hard time breathing. She's like, no, my dad wasn't in that room. All right. So now it's time to go to bed. And I've told the other girls that my room feels weird and I'm having a hard time breathing when I'm in there and I feel nauseous and it's just not a good time. So one of my friends offers to stay with me in the room. She said, do you want me to stay with you in your room? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, maybe if you're here, I'll feel better. So we all go to sleep. I am laying in the room. I can hear my voice or my breath. And I just start to kind of work myself up. So I get up and I go to the washroom, but I go to the washroom outside the room. And I'm feeling very nauseous, so much so that I make myself sick. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I would never make myself sick all over energy. I'm like, there's something wrong with the room. I'm going to go lay in another room. So I went and laid another room that was empty. And I'm laying in the room and all I can feel is Tori's father's energy. And he's saying, we need to go talk to Tori. You need to go wake her up. I need to talk to her. This is what I'm thinking in my head. And I was just thinking, it's 2 a.m. at this point. I'm not going to go into Tori's room and wake her up and tell her that her dad wants to talk to her. And the only way that I can describe what was happening to me at this point is it's like a daydream or a movie in my head. So it's kind of playing and I can't shut it off. So because my mind is racing, I wasn't able to sleep. So I'm laying in this room, the lights are on, I'm on top of the covers, I'm just trying to calm my breathing, calm my nerves. Don't want to go into a full-blown panic attack. I'm trying to convince myself that I'm fine and I'm just making this all up. And now we're about 4:30 in the morning. I haven't slept. I just feel like, it feels like a headache where it won't go away. And then in this moment, it clicked. And her dad said to me, okay, fine, I'll wait till the morning. And then it was like every symptom, everything that I was feeling just went away. In that moment, after he said, okay, fine, I'll wait till the morning, my eyes opened, my headache went away, I sat up on the bed, and I was just like, I felt fine. My breathing was fine. And I was like, okay, maybe this just passed. I don't know. So I left that room. I went back to my room where my friend was sleeping in the bed. We're at 5 a.m. by now. And I get back into the bed. I kind of test my breathing. I was like, okay, I don't hear it anymore. So maybe he left me alone to sleep. I go to bed, fall asleep fine. The next morning comes quickly. It's about 9 a.m. I open my eyes and instantly I hear my breathing. I'm like, he's back. Why? Like, I don't get it. He told me he would kind of leave me alone. So I go out to the kitchen and there's a few girls already up and we start having some breakfast and some snacks. And I'm on edge at this point. I've had little sleep. I've had this kind of thing in the back of my head that I need to do. My breathing is labored where I'm feeling exhausted and I'm kind of just waiting for Tori to wake up. I told the girls what had happened. I'm like, I just need to talk to Tori. I need to wait for her to wake up. Her dad needs to talk to her. Like, it's go time. So about 10, 15 minutes later, Tori wakes up. She comes into the kitchen. And instantly I was like, your dad kept me awake all night. I need to talk to you right now. And the only way I know how to do it is through Reiki. And I think that we need to sit in my room and I'm just going to Reiki you. And then we're going to see what your dad has to say because I don't know any other way of how to get this out, but he's been bothering me all night. I know he has something to tell you. And she was very excited. I think she was kind of waiting for this moment. And we went to the room. I had her lay down on the bed. Instantly, my breath started. And I said, Tori, do you hear this? And she was like, yeah. I was like, how did your dad pass away? Like, why am I feeling so nauseous? Why does my chest hurt? Why is my breathing like this? I don't get it. And her face goes blank. And she stares at me with that, duh, I should have known face. And she said, my father had lung cancer. I was like, Tori, for the past 18 hours or so, I have been asking you how your father has passed away, telling you I'm having trouble breathing, and you tell me now he had lung cancer? And she was like, I didn't even think about it. She's like, he did have trouble breathing, and he did have, he was very nauseous because of the medication he was taking. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, and your grandma and grandpa? She's like, I don't know. And she's just like, they were never in this room, so I don't understand why they would be here with you. So at this point, the only way I know how to get people to communicate is through Reiki. So I start Reikiing her and then I start to cry. And my crying is now, I'm learning, my symbol for something's here, something's present, because normal Steph in everyday life doesn't cry very easily. So when the tears just start happening almost instantly when I touch someone, I know something's going on. And another theme that I noticed is that when I burp, the soul leaves. So at the end of my Reiki sessions or at the end of any of the other experiences, I just have this, I say burping, but it's kind of like if there was a bubble of air in my stomach coming up, which is a burp, but it's not a belch or anything. It's almost this release of energy. And that's how I kind of know that it's over. And when my Reiki sessions are done, that's how I feel clear, is I have to wait for the burp to know that it's done. So my hands are on Tori. She's laying on the bed and we're going through. And she's like, is my dad here yet? And I'm like, no, not yet. I was like, but I'll just keep working. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, he's here. I could feel his presence. I knew he was there. And he starts to, I start to describe how he looks to her. I'm like, your dad has a very distinct jawline. Like, I feel like it's like a square jaw, or I can really see his jaw. And his hair is dark and it's combed over to one side. She's like, yeah, my dad did have a very distinctive jaw, but he never parted his hair that way. He always pushed it back. And I was like, okay, well, he's really showing me his hair parted to the side and I can see his jawline. And your grandma and grandpa are here. And I feel like your grandpa is like this very big, tall man, like a big man. And your grandma is like this little small woman. Like when they stand beside each other, they kind of look funny because he's so big and she's so small. And she laughs and she's like, yeah, that's what they look like. And I said, she's sitting on a rocking chair. She seems to be the one that talks more. And he's just in the background. And she laughs again. She's like, yeah, that's their personality. And then the dad starts talking, and he starts to talk about the family, and he starts to talk about what's going on with her brothers and sisters, and he starts to talk about her mom and her health and what's going on with that. And Tori always finds dimes, and she always says, whenever I find a dime, I always think of my dad. And one of the first things that her dad said was, "Are you rich yet from all the dimes I've been sending you?" And it was kind of this little joke of, yeah, that is me, like, don't forget it. So at the end of, well, I wouldn't have to say at the end of it, but I start to burp, and I was like, oh, he's leaving. Like, when I burp, it kind of means it's over. So Tori sits up, and we kind of discuss what was said and what was happening. And I was like, I still don't understand why this room is holding so much energy. Why are the three of them here? And again, it's kind of the deer in the headlights look. And she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, for the last week when my dad was sick, he couldn't walk up the stairs to his room. So he was staying in this room. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And she's like, now that I think about it, when my grandparents got older and when they used to come to the cottage, they couldn't walk down the stairs to their room. So they ended up staying in the guest room as well. So for the last few times that they came, they would have also been in this room. And I was like, okay, that makes sense of why I felt so much energy in this room. So after that had happened, Tori says to me, do you want to come see a photo of my dad and my grandparents? And I was like, yes, like absolutely. And I'm kind of getting into this habit where I want to see the picture after to confirm if it's the image that I saw in my mind. So the way that I can describe it, when I see a photo, I can say, yes, it looks like that, or no, it doesn't. So we go into this room that I hadn't been in yet during the weekend, and it was full of photos, and it was like kind of the family sitting room. And she starts to show me pictures of her dad. And the first one she showed me, and I was like, no, he was younger than that. The next photo she showed me, I'm like, he was older than that. The next photo that she showed me, I was like, no, he weighed more than he did when he was in this photo. And then she shows me a big portrait style, and her dad has the very chiseled jawline, and his hair is parted to the side. I was like, this is what he looks like. This is exactly what he looks like. And she started to laugh. She's like, oh my gosh, this is the photo that I always use for my dad when I remember him. When it's his birthday, this is the photo that I choose. When it's his anniversary, this is the photo that I post. She said, I have this photo of him beside my bed, and I never noticed that his hair was parted to the side. She's like, that's so funny. And we had like a little laugh about how I was so adamant that his hair was parted to the side, and she was so adamant that his hair was pushed back. But in the moment when she saw the photo of how she remembers her dad, it was with his hair pushed to the side. And then I asked to see a picture of her grandma and grandpa, and she shows me a photo, and it was exactly as I had seen in my mind, a small little woman and a tall, big man, and they were just the cutest little things. And I was like, yes, that is exactly how I like pictures to me in my mind. So after a few good hugs and a cry, we go back to the group, and I just feel this sense of relief. It was like something that had been in the pit of my stomach was now completed, and I could enjoy the rest of the time in the weekend there. I almost wish that I would have done this the second I walked in, but because I still don't know what's going on and don't know why I'm feeling these things, I didn't really understand that I was having such strong reactions because I needed to tell Tori. And I'll learn this as well. Each little story is a learning where when I start to feel something, all of a sudden, I need to learn that it's not mine. So something that I learned from this was that if I all of a sudden have breathing problems or stomach pain, I just need to tell myself, this isn't mine, this isn't mine, this isn't mine, because I don't need to physically feel these symptoms in order to channel the spirits. It's nice of them to let me know a strong signal of tell them I had lung cancer, but at this point I didn't know what it meant. I'm getting a little bit better at identifying it now. I think I've can strongly identify what a heart attack feels like, which I wish I didn't have to, but it is very helpful when I'm channeling souls now to say, okay, I'm having really strong pain here. How did they pass away? Oh, that pain makes sense for their death. Great. And it just aids in the communication of getting the message across. So, of course, we go back to the girls. We tell them all the stories, and I get all the faces and reactions, but everyone is very supportive. Up until this point, I've had no one be like, you're wrong, you're crazy, this isn't true. Everyone's kind of like, all right, like, if this is what just happened, we kind of have to believe it. And I was still in the place of, I don't think I believe it. But it was happening, and I was learning lessons. And another big takeaway looking back on this story now that I took away from this one is that people's immediate reaction is always no. I can tell you that your mom's name started with M and you can tell me no. And then I say, what's your mom's name? And you're like, Mary. I was like, Mary starts with M. It's like, oh, I can tell you that I'm feeling something in the chest and ask you how your dad died. And you tell me lung cancer. And you're like, oh, it's almost like we're searching for another connection, or we want to hear what we're looking for. So now in my readings, I shouldn't say readings, I should say sessions. I technically do not take mediumship clients even up until this point. I just feel that your body will get what it needs when you come to see me. So if you need Reiki over talking to your dad for an hour, you're going to get an hour of Reiki. If your shoulder needs more attention than what your mom has to tell you, your shoulder's going to get the attention. And at the end of the appointment, I always say, your mom's here and she wants to tell you this, but I am not going to take over the whole session when you actually need energy work, and that's why you came to see me, because I don't advertise as a medium. I'm not getting people coming to me for mediumship, and I do feel right now more comfortable working in energy. That's my home base. That's what I know I'm good at, and that's where I like to work. The mediumship is just like the cherry on top of, hey, this might also happen while you're here today. Are you open to any messages? So after this cottage weekend, I don't want to say that I started to become used to it, because even now, today, over a year later, when I have experiences happen, I'm still not used to it. I still expect to be wrong. I still don't expect the message to land with you. I still don't expect, if I tell you that your boyfriend's name is Rob, that his name is actually Rob. But it did become more, I want to say, like a pill that I could swallow. I was like, okay, I kind of get this, and I kind of see why people need this. Like, I could see the helping people side. So this was when I was ready to almost sit in my power. I want to say that now, today, I'm ready to sit in my power. I'm ready to launch this podcast. I'm ready to share my story. But at this point, I was ready to be like, okay, I'm interested. Okay, I want to learn. Okay, what's next? Okay, if I can do this for this person, what else can I do for another person? So this was really when the door opened for me, and I was like, okay, let's go. So from this point, I started to put my head down and research, looking up other mediums, reading blogs, trying to find people in the area that I could talk to. And it's a hard thing to find support with, because most mediums will charge you $200 or more an hour to talk to them. So even me, who I just wanted information, I don't need a reading, you still have to pay their hourly price. And at this point, I was like, I'm not willing to invest $200 for someone who may or may not be able to give me answers. I was kind of looking for a guru or someone to help me. All I could think of is that Tony Robbins, I'm not your guru kind of line. And everyone that I met was just not the right person. And because my primary focus is energy, and my roots are in Reiki, I have a high phony rate, I want to say. So if I met you and I didn't vibe with you, or if you were one of those let's surround ourselves in white light and call in the angels. And I was like, no, okay, I don't work like that. I'm like, hey, is your so-and-so's name this? And did you wear this when you were younger? And da-da-da. Cool. Like, I don't know what that means, but that's what I have to tell you. So I was trying to find someone who was similar to me. I wasn't very, I don't want to say bad things about the way other people do it, but I just wasn't as woo-hooey as this community can be. I was direct. I knew the information that I had. I didn't try to stretch it out and take 10 minutes to just explain that this person was your mother. So after this event, I did attend one psychic circle. So it was where people got together. It was the only thing I could find in my area of my small town, where kind of like-minded individuals got together. And I went to this circle and I brought a friend, and it definitely wasn't the right fit. I went there, I think, expecting answers and help, and for people who maybe were experiencing the same thing that I was, to have a conversation and talk about it. But what I got was people very interested in what I do and wanting a reading, and it kind of becoming the Steph show where I just talked about what's been happening and I didn't get very many answers. So that was the first and only circle that I've ever experienced. If you guys are interested in what went on when I was there, I can do a separate episode on it. But that was the first time that I seeked out strangers' help, I guess you could say, and probably the last time. From now, what I've been doing is I've been meeting other healers and energy workers, and if I connect with you, then we go for coffee and we talk about all the weird things that happened to you and all the strange things that happened to me, and with other people's experience, it can help us figure out what's going on. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear about that in future episodes. But I'm going to wrap up episode 3 here. The Cottage story was another big one. Episode 4, I'm so excited for, because episode 4 was the beginning of, I don't even know how to describe it, but episode 4 was my big slap in the face. Episode 4 was, Steph, this is happening. Steph, you're going to have to deal with this whether you like it or not. And Steph, this is why you're doing it. It's because it's literally going to change people's lives and how they live. So I'm really excited to share episodes 4. But I appreciate you listening to episode 3. Episodes 4 are going to release next week. Thank you for listening. Again, if you are interested in staying in contact with me, you can follow me on Instagram at Medium in the Middle. I also have an email there if you have any questions. We will be doing a Q&A for episode 5, so please send me your questions. It's going to just be covering all of the questions that I started getting at this time. So it's going to answer all of those little things I'm sure that you want to know by this point. And again, my name is Stephanie. I am the Medium in the Middle, and you're listening to the Medium in the Middle podcast.